everyone has a little bit different style of doing things. Everyone's got a little bit stylistic differences and you're taught different ways. And I'm not here to like trample over that or anything. What I really like to focus on in doing workshops, especially when addressing a lot of people from a lot of different schools of thought, a lot of different hierarchies, is to kind of go over fundamentals and things that can be applied, but also make sure that regardless of where you're at, whether if you're brand new, whether you've been here 2 or 3 decades, hopefully that something can be taken away from or applied or at least, looked at from a different lens, whether it be direct results for your own production, training people, or developing leaders. So what I wanted to talk about today was mindset in this business, because the factor is that this business in and of itself is simple. It is not an overly complicated business. You make phone calls, you see people, you read a script, you enroll people, you make money. Simple doesn't necessarily mean easy. Picking up an engine block is simple. It's not easy. And because of that, one of the most important things in this business is mindset. The way that you approach, the way that you effectively apply these simple principles to be as effective as possible. So what I really wanted to talk about is three main mindsets and three main concepts, and that's prioritization, professionalism, and persistence in this business, and how to really best utilize that to really get the most out of what is the most important thing for everyone on this call. I don't care if you're brand new. I don't care if you're worth $70 million. The most important thing on this call is your time. If you are wasteful with your time, you're going to feel it. I don't care who you are. So to be able to effectively use these things and make the most out of your time, whether that means that you just be able to make more money and you're more effective and you can leverage things better, or if it means you can be more efficient and you can use that time for other things that you want, whether it be passion projects, whether it be charity, whether it be spending time with your family. The most important thing is to utilize the time that we have as well as possible by being effective in applying the things that we know. So I'm going to start that off by talking about the number one priority that should be for most people, especially brand new agents and especially field trainers, and that's phones. Especially now, more than ever, everything rests on phones. The reason being is that we're in a digital world, and that's how we connect with people. Back in the day, I loved door knocking. Like, I've done 6, 8, 10,000 without making a single phone call in a week, just relying on door knocking. It's really tough to do now. It's really tough, one, because we really like being home, and I think everyone can agree with that. But the other part is, just the way that leads are distributed. You're not necessarily going to get a bunch of leads in the same zip code. You're not going to be able to just hop in your car and drive house to house to house to house. Phones are more important now than they've ever been. The other part of it, especially for new agents, is it puts so much more on you to be effective and memorable on the phones. The reason being is show ratio is, it's build or break in this business. As an example, like my first 6 months, like a million years ago, I did very well. But I would say 90% of the sales that I walked into in someone's house, they looked at me like they had no idea who I was. And they're like, oh, I forgot you were coming. Come on in. Every single one of those where they did not remember who I was probably going to be a no-show in today's world. So 90% of the success I had in the beginning of this business is much harder to achieve by conventional means. And that's why it's so important that we have such a deliberate focus on the phones, because everything now relies on it. Now, I'm going to talk about ways that you can mitigate that, but you at least have to have a basic fundamental understanding of it. And that's what I really wanted to focus on first, is that phones and show ratio are everything. So for trainers, you want to be overwhelmingly focused on it. One of the things I work with the people I'm developing as managers and for myself is, if you can't call and set 85, 90% of the people you're speaking to and can't reliably count on 40 to 50% of them showing up, there's no point in moving forward into other stuff. Because you could teach someone everything about insurance. They could know every policy that exists. They could know every close. If people aren't showing, it's not going to matter. But if you teach them to sit with 12 to 15 people, they will learn every single thing that you want them to just from brute force. Like it's impossible to sit down with 12 to 15 people a week and not learn something. For agents, if you don't have the ability to generate activity, you don't have anything. So what I'm going to talk about is just kind of those principles with phones without getting into specifics. So the main thing and the first thing when I talk about with phones is most important to me is energy. This person, this is your first impression. Your first impression is not when they get on Zoom and they see you and they see your professional background and they see you looking, very professional. It's your voice. It's that first thing, what they hear, they're judging the hell out of you. So the first thing is there's got to be a ton of energy. What I recommend to my people and what I recommend to everyone is always be mindful of whatever energy you're carrying when you go into that call, or be prepared to jerk yourself out of it. If you notice right now I'm standing. One of the things I hate calling while sitting down. Or if I'm sitting down, I hate being on the phone. Now, one of the things is I have to actually stand up and walk away because when I do get on the phone, I'm very loud and I don't want to be shouting into the microphone with the other people on Zoom. But I'd encourage everyone, because what happens, especially on those rough phone nights, who's had a rough phone night before? Just about everyone. We go an hour and a half, we go 2 hours calling. What happens if you're just sitting in that chair? 4 o'clock, you're sitting like this, and then 5 o'clock, you're like this, and then 6 o'clock, you're like this, and then 7 o'clock, and all of a sudden, 7:15, someone picks up the phone, and you're like, hello, hey, this is Matt with American Income, how you doing? And all of a sudden, like, it's a control nightmare. You got a million questions, or they've hung up the phone, and you got to do it all over again. The second someone picks up the phone, right up out of the chair. And then the big thing is keep in mind who we're talking to. We're not speaking to people who are, requesting services from Berkshire Hathaway or, I'm forgetting the other ones. You want to be informal. They're your best friends. So I'm not going to be there and like, excuse me, I'm looking to speak with Mr. McQuade. It'd be like, Andrew. Hey, Andrew, this is Matt with American Income. We handle the benefits with you for the steelworkers. How you doing tonight? I want him, first and foremost, I want him on his back foot. I want him being like, oh shit, I don't remember who this is. I don't want him thinking about how to get out of the conversation. I want him worried like, man, this guy's acting like he's known me forever and I can't remember his voice. But also because his name, Andrew, that's his favorite sound in the world. It's a sound he's heard more than any other sound his entire life. That's how I hold his attention, but it's also how I get him to like me. So it's a combination of that energy and just saying that name over and over again and holding him in and holding his attention. But that energy is huge. And then controlling the conversation. So one of the big things is control and that mindset of control. What I tell people when we're teaching them phones, and it used to be back in the day where you have physical scripts. And I don't know if you guys did this, but this is something that we were taught from day one. We were handed these scripts and it wasn't printed on it. We had to go take a marker and write, I'm busy, I'm important, I'm in control. Does anyone have anyone that teaches them that? Like that's like super old school.
We, Matt, our old SGA made us put that in all of our offices and cubicles, like tape it,
Right on the, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's important. It's hugely important. It's important to take that with you, because that mindset is going to be critical. It's a combination of being their best friend, but respecting your own time. So you have to bring that energy, but also you have to be confident and respect your time as you're on the phone. The number one rule I would have for keeping that control and keeping that mindset on the phones is never stop talking except to ask them questions. That's how you hold control on a phone conversation. And if for anyone's unfamiliar, control basically is just the concept of who's dictating the interaction. I'm steering it towards, I want them to answer my questions. I want them to set an appointment with me. I want to make sure that I can solidify the appointment they show up and that my time is going to be respected and worth the time I'm investing. Their control might be, I don't want to have a phone conversation. Phone conversations terrify me. I want off this phone call right away. And so Using that control is what's necessary to make sure you get through and get to all the points that you need. So what I'm going to do is at the start of that conversation, and I'm not going to go specific into scripts. You guys love scripts. They're all fantastic. But I'm going to make sure that I build a ton of control, I build a ton of familiarity, and I keep things moving. So it'd be like, Jimmy, hey, Jimmy, this is Matt with American Income. We handle the benefits for you through the Carpenters. How you doing today?
Good, you?
I'm good. Well, Jimmy, they sent you a letter in the mail, and I got this 3x5 card that you'd filled out and sent in. I just need to verify the information on this card. I'll have you off the phone real quick. So first of all, Jimmy, you listed Chelsea as your beneficiary. I'm sure that's right?
Yep.
Okay. And so you notice, like, there's no pauses, there's no asking for permission. It was very assumptive. I'm not coming off as rude, but I'm coming off like my time is valuable. But the other thing is I'm not rushing. One of the things new people kind of fall into the trap to is they decide to rush, because if they don't get those words out, they might get interrupted. All that comes across is a giant red flag that you're not confident in what you say. So it's important to say things with, with intensity, with energy, but don't rush it. Respect your time. Usually people who are speaking deliberately and with emphasis, they get interrupted a lot less than someone who's just trying to rush through nervously. So make sure you take your time and say the words you need to say, but with that brisk undertone of your time is very valuable. Now, you're asking them questions. It's that mindset that's so important. The same thing as you go to set the appointment. One of the biggest things is having a mindset of a professional and respecting your own time. This is something where I think is critical for every phone call that you set, every appointment that you make, every appointment that you do, and every, final offer that you do, is that you are a professional. Whether you've been here 10 years, whether you've been here 2 weeks, you've put a ton of time into this. You're licensed professionals in whatever state you are. You've studied for tens, 20, hundreds of hours. You're doing educational programs like this each and every week to get better. You guys are professionals. The other part of it, though, is you're paid like professionals or potentially paid like professionals. Who here's written 4,000 in a week? I'm guessing, going to be a lot of hands. And if you've written 4,000, or if you've seen someone written 4,000, keep in mind that 4,000 you can do 8,000. How much money roughly do you make writing 8,000 ALP? Anyone?
Like 3,000 maybe?
About 4,000.
No,
Yep, 4,000. It depends. Like, there's different contracts, there's different bonuses. Roughly, it's about half. So if you write 8,000 ALP, you make $4,000. How many hours would you say on average that we work? Honestly, and it's definitely a lot less than it used to be without all the driving. But I mean, honest to God work.
10 hours.
35 hours.
Probably
50
like
hours.
25 to 30 hours.
Yeah, conservatively. Think about that. That's like anywhere between $125 to $170 an hour. What other professions do you guys know that make that kind of money?
Well, can I give an
Right.
answer to that?
Yeah.
You're looking at attorneys, doctors, those that are typically W-9 owners themselves, and the odds of that are even very slim. So you couldn't say a certain profession. You would say some of them have the realm of being there. So it's very rare, very rare.
Yep. Yep, those high-skilled electricians, high-skilled plumbers, basically professionals. And that's something to keep in mind. Is that, what's that? I apologize, I didn't hear that. But yeah, we're talking professionals. And so the biggest thing to keep in mind that when you make this appointment and you're talking with them, be polite, be respectful, be informal, treat them like your friend, but also understand this is your job, this is your profession, and take it seriously. So when I speak to this person and I set aside a time, an hour and a half for them, based that any given week, I could be making 150 to 200 bucks an hour. It's like I'm taking 300 bucks out of my pocket and putting it on a table with the promise that these people are going to be there. And that is something that I try to keep in mind every single time I talk with people and when I'm talking to them on the phone and stressing that. The best show ratio I ever had in person was when I was running, there was this middle of nowhere town called Wellsboro. Jimmy knows where I'm talking about. In the middle of nowhere in northeastern PA. It was a 3.5 hour drive from the office. Every single phone call, when I get to that point of solidifying the appointment, it was like, death itself was coming if they were not there. Where it's just like, now, Jimmy, I just want to 100% make sure that you are definitely going to be there, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and you don't need to get to that point. But I had the best show ratio I ever had because I took it so seriously. You need to take it as seriously or more seriously now because it's so much easier for people to stand you up. It was really hard for someone to stand me up when I'm sitting at their front door going, oh, did I just break stuff? Okay, we're good. It's way easier for them to see a text or see a call and go like, nope. So it's so important that I lost my notes. Uh-oh. It's so important that we really take that seriously to make sure. The next part is like when we're solidifying that appointment, when we're going through with it, to make, oh, here they are. Perfect.
Some flashbacks of getting no-show driving 4 hours away.
I just
and broke
broke
your
one
desk.
of my monitors.
You broke your desk.
Okay. Yeah.
PTSD at its best.
That was like that
Yeah.
pent up. Yeah.
Yeah.
So show ratio, the best show ratio I ever had was there. So, and now the other part is making them do the work. One of the real traps we can fall on the phones is like, we're rushing on to the next one. You guys ever heard the phrase, love the one you're with in a presentation? You never want to rush off a presentation or be worried about your next presentation because all you're doing is shooting yourself in the foot. There's no guarantee they're going to be there. But it's the same thing with the phone conversation. People are, once someone's agreed to set an appointment with you, there's this initial reaction like, oh my God, thank God, let me get off here before they can change their mind. That's just not how people work though. Once someone starts down a path, the more you pull them down the path, the more consistent they're going to be with that. That's why it's so important that when you set these appointments to make them work for it. Let me ask you this. Do you appreciate more the $20 you find on the street or the $10 you won from your friend by beating him at a bet or a dare?
Dare.
Which one's more important to you? The one you won, right? The one you earned.
The one you earned, yeah.
Exactly. People value what they earn way more than what they're given. And so what it used to be in the back in the day was they'd have a little skin in the game. Now, Jim, like GPS exists. MapQuest even existed way back in the day. But you would still be like, all right, Jim, so I'm going to be coming down this road. Can you give me detailed directions how to get to the house? One, I want him to visualize me as a person. But two, I want him to do some goddamn work. I want him invested on seeing this coming through. And so now what we have to do is we have to do a little bit differently where we need them to specifically put some effort in when we talk to them on the phone. One of the ways to do that is to walk them onto Zoom right then and there. I don't care if you're setting this appointment for later tonight, tomorrow, 6 weeks from now. If you go ahead and put in that additional effort, that's the key to making sure that these people remember you and put significance on this interaction because you're making them put in effort and get invested in seeing it come to fruition. If all you do on that phone conversation is like, hey, I got 2 o'clock tomorrow or 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock, which one's going to work best? And they're like 2 o'clock and you're okay, perfect. I'll send you an email. Bye. The second you hang up that phone, you cease to exist for that person. Not because they're a dick, not because, they don't respect you, but because they're a human being. Every human being has so much going on in their life, especially anymore, that if you don't deliberately go out of your way to stand out, you're going to be forgotten the second you disappear from their peripheral vision. So you got to go out of your way to really kind of be annoying. You'd be like, okay, perfect. Do me a favor. I'm going to send you a Zoom link right now. Hop on. Make them go through that effort. And they're like, do I have to do this right now? Yes, you do. Sorry, we just got to make sure. That way we can just focus on the presentation then. Make them go through that effort. Make them get on there. then they see you. It's just like when they were giving me directions back in the day. They get to see I'm an actual human being. I'm not this just amorphous voice on the phone that they haven't attributed anything to. They see me, they see I'm a person, I talk with them, even if it's just a minute or two. But also everyone knows if we can roll into that appointment, it's got a 100% show ratio. But I mean, regardless, even if he's like, oh yeah, I'm at work, or oh yeah, she's not here right now. Don't shortcut yourself. Have them hop on Zoom. Make them do the work so they value the appointment more. And the last thing with phones in specific, and then I just want to talk about mindset for a little bit. We're doing good on is make sure that you carry that energy through. So we talked about having that good energy at the beginning. You want to make sure that last impression you make with them is key. It's the difference between him hanging up the phone and his wife going, hey, honey, who was that? And he's like, I don't know, some guy, my benefits. Or, hey, that was Matt. He talked to me about my benefits. We got a meeting here at 8 o'clock. Is at that end positively. Jim, all right, Jim, well, I got you put in there for 8 o'clock tomorrow evening. You're sure that was definitely going to work for you guys, right?
Yep.
All right, perfect, man. I hope you have yourself a great night. Don't work too hard tomorrow, okay?
I won't.
All right, man, you have yourself a good one. I'll see you then.
All right. Bye.
Super energetic, super positive. Be excited to see them. People are mirrors in this business. I think everyone understands that. If you sound and are genuinely excited to see this person, chances are they're much more likely they're going to show up because that's transferable. That's contagious. So let me move this. I can't see all of it. So the big thing with professional stuff and having that mindset and focusing on those things is that once you value your time and treat that, it's the same thing. When you're sitting there with that mindset of the professional and you treat your time as that valuable, that's exactly how it gets treated back. So when we're doing these things and we're not wasting our time and we're specifically going through all these efforts to make sure that this phone call is effective and impactful as possible, that's when they really start to show up all the time or they start to take you seriously. There's a difference when you rush through a phone call and don't take it seriously and they get on, and who's had someone hop on the phone and all you're seeing is this through the entire presentation, right? Drives you nuts. Drives you absolutely nuts. And the reason being is because they didn't take your time seriously. They sat there and they talked to you and you're like, that's fine. And then all of a sudden they're folding laundry or they're cooking dinner and they're like, yeah, I can hear you. We got to make sure we take our time seriously if we want it to be treated seriously as well. And having that mindset of the professional and understanding how much money you're investing in each and every person you sit down with. Because if you're sitting down with them, you're not sitting down with someone else. Now, the other part I wanted to talk about besides professionalism is persistence. Because that is the other key in this. Because it is something I honestly hate the phrase fake it till you make it. But this is very much a business where you learn these things by doing. And one of the number one ways that you learn this business is getting your ass kicked. Sorry, I messed up my camera. So this is a culture of no's, and this is a culture of adversity. This job is collecting and learning how to properly respond to no's. I think me and Jimmy have talked about this a couple of times. When I started, I wasn't the best. I just got told no by more than anyone else. I went out in 12, 15 people every single week, and most of them told me no. And by the end of the year, I had collected so many no's. I had learned so many different things. And that's kind of how you have to be about this, is see how quickly you can get to your first 100 no's. See how quickly you can get to your first 1,000 no's. And there's different types of, there's going to be all sort of different no's that you get throughout this business. There's going to be the no's where people hang up the phone on you. There's going to be the no's where people refuse appointments with you. There's going to be the no-shows. Those are their own no's. There's going to be the ones where people just, I'm going to stop you right there. We've already got insurance, this, that, and the other thing. There's going to be the ones where you get to the end of the presentation and they're like, nah. Every single one is different. The most important thing to keep in mind is that no's in this business are way more valuable than the yeses. You really don't learn that much when you get told yes. Just reinforce whatever you're doing, whether it was good or bad. But if you properly, properly take a look at it, properly, dissect it, you can learn so much more from the no's that you get. Okay. And so one of the big things is to make sure that you really value those no's and you really put yourself in position to get as many no's as humanly possible. One of the ways to do that is an abundance mindset. This job, especially early on, it is all about numbers. It's something where the more appointments that you can throw at a situation, the more activity you can throw at a situation, the less stressed you're going to be, the less worried you're going to be about any particular outcome, and the more you're going to get to focus on just getting better at this business. It's way easier to learn this business sitting down with 10 to 12 people than it is trying to turn every one out of 4 sits into a slam dunk. When you go into those sits and you're trying to Babe Ruth every single one of them, you're so focused on that, you're not learning a goddamn thing. But if you sit there and you just approach it from an activity standpoint and an abundance standpoint, you can get so much more out of it. But also in the long run, ends up being way less stress. And that's the other part of that, handling that adversity, handling that professionalism, is understanding that this is just a stress-based business. This business by default is naturally stressful. Everything that you can do in this business to mitigate that stress or proactively not create stressful situations makes you better equipped to be good at this business. So from that mindset, getting 12 to 15 sits takes all of the pressure off of any sit needing to be a slam dunk, needing to go into a sit and just absolutely destroy it. The mindset I've always had with sits, sales, and phone calls, and something that's always helped keep that professional mindset, is honestly not really caring. Like, I care about this person, I want to make sure they're taken care of, but I don't care about any particular result. I've always described it as, when I sit down with a person, my mindset is, I really don't give a shit if you buy from me, but you're probably going to. But that can only really be cultivated when you have enough sits that you're not worried about needing to sell any particular person. And you only get that many sits by proactively going out of your way, taking every phone call that you make seriously, not going through the motions because it's phones and it's miserable. Making sure that you take your time to specifically do all those things right the first time, and really hone those things into perfection so that you're never having, this job is stress-based, and the number one way to mitigate that is proactively do things that will mitigate that stress, whether it be morning phone calls, whether it be when you're on those phone calls, making sure you go through every single little thing to make sure that those phone calls are perfect, or to make sure that when those people show up, you've set the control, you've set everything, but also you got 4 or 5 other presentations today. So if someone's not paying attention to you, you can be like, hey, I need you to look at me. I got a really busy schedule. Like I say, if this time doesn't work for you, we'll find a time does, but this is super important. I need to make sure that you listen to me. And having the confidence of a full schedule that you're not like, oh my God, I just said that and now I'm not going to see anyone for the rest of the day. But you only get that by proactively doing all those things that need to be done. And that completely mitigates any stress that not completely mitigates any stress you might have, but it completely helps mitigate stresses that you're going to create for yourself by not having activity, by last minute trying to make sure that you get to a certain ALP threshold, by making sure that you're making appointments out of nothing. The other part of it is, and I'm sure even new people have seen, this job is it is feast or famine. Where you're getting consistently 10 to 15 sits, it's way easier to continue getting 10 to 15 sits because you're seeing people, you're getting referrals, you're getting that control, and you just feel better, because it is sales, where it's like, if you're feeling confident, what's the best time to make a sale?
after a sale.
right after a sale. And the thing is, it's way easier to come out of a sale if you're sitting down with 12 people a week, you know? Like, and everyone's had that bomb that they drop, and all of a sudden the rest of their day, they just light it up. You know, some of the best days I've ever had is because I had a monster sale at 12 o'clock, and you go into every sit after that acting like you could care less whether or not this person buys. Like you're in the best mood ever, you know, and you're just like, yeah, absolutely. And that telegraphs through. You know, that telegraphs through where you're going to these sits without any sort of agenda or any sort of need for an outcome. Hugely impactful. It's one of the most trust building mindsets that you can have is not to have those dollar signs in your eyes when you're talking to these people. Because they're like, wow, he's just legitimately talking about me and my problems. He's not steering me, or she's not steering me into any specific outcome. Sorry, I really got myself off track when I broke my monitor. So the big thing I would say is that with mindset, the big things are just to prioritize. Prioritize the big things that you need to do. With phones, it's activity, you know, building activity. If you can be good at phones, you're not going to have any problem with this job. If you're not particularly comfortable with phones, doing it well enough that you can get yourself to the point where you're just collecting referrals and making it easy for yourself that way. Or you're great enough at writing business, you can hire someone to call for you. But making sure that you invest that time to have a handle on activity, because everything rests on that. Professionalism, understanding that no one will respect your time unless you respect it. And then persistence, understanding that this is a job of collecting no's, and the more no's that you collect, the better you're going to be at this job, and that you should celebrate everyone just as much as you do the yeses. But the big part I would say with that, though, is not to dwell on them. I've gotten told no thousands of times in this business. I don't know if I could tell you a single one, what their name was, what they looked like, anything. But I can tell you people I sold like 10 years ago. You know, I could tell your name, what they looked like, what we talked about. It's one of those things where you learn from it and then you let it go. Don't carry a no with you into the next house. You know, one of the best pieces of advice I think I may even got it from Jimmy, was every single day, it's like you start at zero. You know, you don't want to come in like you had this huge week and a full belly, but you also want to come in like you had the worst week ever and you need results. If every day you come in with a fresh slate, it allows you to just focus on those things and focus on that mindset, as opposed to, you know, trying to ride the waves in a bipolar business.